Hello, self-isolators and quarantine kids. Welcome back to my boyfriend's channel. It is I, ya boy, having this whole Ichigo moment right here. I swear if you watch these videos back to back, it's like my hair changes every single time. But, well, whatever. And on today's episode of me watching movies that are over 10 years old and I should have already seen, we are going to talk about, I think all these movies have won Oscars. Not 100% sure on the first one, which I would hate to know that it has, but Blade Runner. And for the love of Harrison Ford, I fucking hate this movie. I don't understand this movie. I don't know, like, I really don't understand anything that's happening. Like, they give you a lot of exposition in the first 10 seconds. They do this whole, like, Star Wars thing where it's like, words. But I guess it's the future, by the way. The future of 2019 November, so like 6 months ago. And Harrison Ford is like a cop, kind of. They're called Blade Runners, that's where the title comes from, and they hunt down replicants, which are like exact clones of people that were supposed to be retired. They don't say eliminate, they don't say that they kill them, but they retire them. They had an uprising, and now they just were like, nope, we don't like them, we're not going to do them anymore. So they hired these specific Blade Runner cop peoples to get rid of them. And this movie is basically Harrison Ford being forced out of retirement to hunt down 4 of them. And the movie's like first scene shows like this one guy who's being questioned, which is to see if he is a replicant, because replicants don't have like human emotions, or they don't show it very well. So they give them these weird tests where it's like, you see a turtle, he's on his back, what do you do? And the guy's kind of like, I don't know, why is there a turtle there? What kind of turtle is it? And then he shoots the guy in the face, like the questioner. He shoots him in the face. And then it goes to like Harrison Ford having like dinner or whatever, being told like he's being arrested. In reality, it's just him being called to like the police station to be like, hey, I need you to do this stuff for me. And he's very hesitant, but he goes and does it. He goes and visits the Tyrell Corporation. They're the ones who make the clones. These particular like replicants are Nexus 6. I guess that's the generation that they were. And he goes and he meets this girl named Rachel. And she's kind of like, and they're like, why don't you test it on me or whatever? I want to see how your testing for replicants is done. And he does like 400 questions. I don't remember. Like, he gives her a bunch of questions, and then he's like, yeah, she's a replicant, but I don't think she knows she's a replicant. And the Tyrell tells Deckard, I think is his name, something like that, whatever, Harrison Ford, like, oh, I gave her, like, fake memories so that she doesn't think that she's a replicant. Like, she thinks that she actually had a life, and my replicants only lived to be 4 years old. They're failsafe. They don't live past 4 years so that they can't, I guess, be evil or whatever. But they don't live past the age of 4. And Rachel doesn't even know. Like, he has to, like, flat out tell Rachel, like, hey, you are a replicant. She doesn't take it too well. But it gets to him literally, like, when I say he spends like 5 minutes staring at like this picture of evidence or whatever, and he like zooms in until he sees like someone's reflection in like a mirror. It's like this big. And he goes to, like, her work, and I think it's a strip club. I'm not 100%. You do get titty, so it's probably a strip club. And she is a replicant. She's one of the, like, 4 that he's supposed to be hunting down. And she, after, like, a big chase, runs through, like, a bunch of, like, broken glass buildings. I don't know. Windows. And he shoots her, and she ends up dying. And later on, the guy who killed the questioner at the beginning, they find him, and he gets shot by, I think it was Rachel. I'm gonna have to look. Honestly, I don't remember, like, any of this movie. Yeah. So, he takes, like, Rachel to his house and has, like, the weirdest kind of rapey vibes makeout scene, where she's just kind of like, and he's like, you do want to kiss me? And she's like, I want to kiss you. Like, it made me very uncomfortable. And later, it may have even been earlier, honestly, this movie was just too much for my brain. There's a scene where this girl is like a homeless girl, meets up with this other dude. His name's Sebastian, I think. And he like makes toys for a living, and they look like little clone people. Like, he was part of the like Tyrell Corporation. And she like infiltrates there, and then later Roy, the big bad, he already like killed off this dude who like made eyes for the replicants. He shows up, and he's just like, "You should take me to your boss." And the Sebastian is like, "Sure, they do." And then he goes up there and he talks to the Tyrell guy, and he's like, "We want to live longer than 4 years. It's not fair to us. We feel like we're real humans. We want to live longer than that. How do we live longer? We came all the way to Earth," like, because I guess they were sent to a different planet. I don't. And he's like, "Sorry, there basically is nothing I can do. You've already been designed. Everything's done." So he just kills him. And then they later kill Sebastian. It doesn't show it. It just kind of says it. If it showed it, I blinked. And so Pris, which is the homeless girl, and Roy go like back to his place. Deckard somehow finds them. I don't know. I really don't. Goes there, and she is just spazzy is the best way to put it. She's literally like doing fucking backflips and is like and she dies. Roy's not happy because they're like boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, I don't know. And later there's like this big chase scene for Deckard and Roy. They get on like a roof, and then like, I want to say Deckard is starting to fall off the building. I really don't remember. Yeah, I literally wrote does some flips. Roy breaks his fingers at one point. Like, it's a weird cat and mouse chase. And at some point, Harrison Ford's like falling off the building and Roy saves him, and then you're kind of like, oh, okay, I guess. And then he just fucking dies. Just falls over and dies. It's like, okay, all 4 of them are dead, your job's done, I guess, but now they know that Rachel's a replicant, they want to go after her, so he and Rachel run away together, I guess. That's how the movie ends. And this was the Blade Runner final cut, so, like, I guess this movie has been edited, like, several times, and this is the version the director felt most was his vision. I kind of wish I'd watched the other versions, because this movie made no fucking sense to me. And I gave it a 3 out of 10. Because I don't fucking understand what happened. Which is really hilarious, considering the second movie that I'm doing made way more sense to me. And it's Inception. I have been waiting to see this movie since I was 14. My sister said she would take me to see it in theaters, and instead took me to see The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. And if you've watched enough videos with me in it, I fucking hate Mark Wahlberg. That's probably where it started, honestly. But Inception, like, at its core, is considered a really hard to understand movie. And for me, it's, when you take out the dream sequence parts, it's very easy to understand. So basically, Cobb and Arthur are the 2 main guys, Leonardo DiCaprio and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Their job is to go into people's subconscious, like in their dreams, and steal information. They go through a couple dreams so that it feels like the person's actually, like, willingly giving it up. They don't realize they're asleep. They get the information and they leave. So, the opening scene of the movie is actually Leo on the beach, which comes into play later. Him being captured or whatever, and then it kind of zooms back to, like, the past, I guess you would say. Like, this all happens within probably, like, 10 hours. And it shows them doing one of their dream sweeps where they're trying to steal information from Saito, I think his name is. And it doesn't work because Cobb sees his wife Maul there, and she kind of, like, interferes, but it's kind of like, he already knows it's not real to begin with. And so they zoom out, they're inside, like, I want to say it's like Warfire, I don't know what country, but like warfare. And then he's like, this isn't my carpet, this is not the way it's supposed to be, it's like polyester. So he knows they're still not in real life, it's still inside a dream. So They kill the guy that's brain they're inside of, which when you kill someone in Inception, they just wake up. Like, when you're in a dream, you wake up. You don't die. And they're just on a train, just casually on a train. And they get everyone, like, awake and they sneak out or whatever. So, to shorten it, basically they failed getting the information and they're like, we're just gonna run for it. Like, we weren't able to do it, we're gonna run for it. So Saito is like, if you can steal information, can you add information? Can you make someone think something was their own idea? And they're like, yeah, maybe, probably. So he's like, all right, Cobb, I can get you back to America if you can do this for me. He wants to put an idea in the mind of his rival, Fisher, that he wants to break up his company so he no longer has it anymore, and he will not own, like, the World Energy Corporation. And so he's like, yeah, sure, we can do this or whatever. Like, I've done it before, I can do this. Plant an idea, easy. So he's like, well, we need an architect. That's where Ellen Page comes in, and she becomes the architect. There's the whole really wow scene to watch where she's just, like, curving the buildings on top of each other and stuff, showing off, like, her own skills. Like, yeah, I can do this. This is real easy. And they go through the, like, hiring process, basically, of, like, Saito wants to be there. They get Tom Hardy. He is a forger, is what they say. He basically, like, I guess shapeshifts or pretends to be the, like, familiar face in your dreams that you see, but it's not actually the person you think it is. They have this guy who's a chemist. He makes a sedative so that they can stay in the dream, because they're doing a third level dream. So it's a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream, instead of just the regular, like, dream in a dream. So they need something to keep everyone knocked out. So they go through all this planning. They're waiting until Fisher's dad dies because they want him to have a free 10 hours to do this whole thing. So they're flying from Sydney to LA or LA to Sydney. I don't remember which. I want to say Sydney to LA. And he's like, if you can finish this before this airline flight is up or whatever, and this is all done, I will call, I guess, the FBI and tell them that you didn't murder your wife. Which is kind of how it hints, is that, like, everyone thinks that he killed his wife. She jumped out of a building, but she told, like, her therapist and police that he's threatening me. He wants me dead, but you don't find out why that is until, like, later. So she had killed herself. He is blamed for the murder. He had to escape the country. It's why he just kind of casually goes to France and Asia and Africa and all these different places. Nilly-willy. And so everything's good. They buy the airport, I believe, so that they know for sure the guy has to be on this plane, and they make it to where his private jet is, like, broke or something, so he has to get in a first class flight so they can all just pretend to be in first class. They give him the sedative in his drink, and they hook up all the stuff, and then they go into their first dream. And this is where it would start to get complicated, because everything up to this point is just pretty easy. It's kind of like a heist movie. So in their first dream, they're, like, taxi drivers, basically. And he gets in the taxi, and they're like, hey, we need the combination to the safe. He has no idea what they're talking about. So they kidnap him. They have Tom Hardy pretend to be his lawyer, which is, like, his Uncle Peter. And they're like, hey, you need to know the combination. He doesn't know it because they're not far enough to dream it. So they're like, oh, okay. So they throw him kind of into the backseat of the car like they're kidnapping him still. And they start to set up the next dream where everyone's going to get put under except the chemist. So he, I guess, has to be the one that's still awake in this first level dream, which time in this dream is slowed down every level you go. It becomes kind of, like, slower. So right now it's, like, real life, it's 10 hours. For them, it's, like, 10 days or something, like a week, kind of. The second dream is, like, a month, and then it's, like, 10 years. Like, I'm not the best at math, but something along the lines of that. So he stays alive. Saito gets shot. And they're like, oh, so if he dies, he'll just wake up. And they're like, no, we're on too much sedative. He'd probably just go into limbo if he dies. So now they actually have stakes of, like, if you die, you're kind of stuck being, like, brain dead. So they get to the second level. Everyone's there with the chemist guy. And the second level is, like, in a hotel lobby. And they literally tell him, like, hey, there are people who will sneak into your dreams and steal your information. But they're doing kind of the same thing they did at the beginning when they did Saito's dream, where they tell him, but this guy does not figure out, like, they're doing it to him right now. And so Fisher's kind of like, oh yeah, I'll join you or whatever. I want to figure this out. Like, they basically set up his uncle into being, like, the guy who is kind of selling him out. Like, oh, your dad doesn't want you to run the company anymore or whatever. He wants you to, like, not fulfill your potential, stuff like that. Like, he changed the will. It's in the safe. Like, they're trying to, like, bait him into thinking that his uncle is, like, out to get him. So this time, they're, like, having him help them. And he knows he's going to get put under this time. So this time, the only person that stays is Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, which is Arthur. He stays because he has to wait for the kick, which is, like, the big famous scene of, like, Leo in, like, the bathtub or whatever, is the kick. Basically, it's that feeling when you, like, fall in your sleep and it, like, immediately wakes you up. So what the first dream they're doing is he's going to drive the van off of a bridge, so that first feeling of falling versus hitting the water, they're gonna have 2 kicks. So he's waiting for the first kick to wake everyone up because they're gonna go into a third dream. But he has to wait to feel it himself, so he has to be awake for this one. So he stays, everyone else goes into this next level of dream, which is like a snowy world, and they're trying to again break into this safe. Saito is still, like, really damaged. Every time they go, his pain gets, like, a little bit worse, so he's, like, really bad off now. And not to mention, because I don't think I said this yet, when you go into someone's dreams, their subconscious wants to attack you because they know you're a foreign object. So most people, it's, like, weird glances, like, people like, hey, leave them alone. Well, Fisher's is, like, a trained military. So this whole time they have people, like, trying to kill them. But it's just subconscious, like, they die, it doesn't matter, they're just random faces that he's seen before. So every level gets, like, worse, because they're getting deeper into his subconscious. So Mal, being Cobb's ex-wife, she tends to show up kind of randomly, and it shows throughout the movie, like, his real struggle to, like, keep her suppressed. It's around, I want to say this time, that, Fisher gets shot, and it's because of Mal. So they're like, well, we'll never know the combination now, everything, we just lost, like, we can't do anything if he's stuck in limbo, we're too far down, or he's already awake at this point, we're not going to get anything from him. So Ellen Page decides, like, oh, okay, well, we'll just go another step lower. So her and Leo do that, so Tom Hardy stays this time. Saito already died, and they're like, well, he's stuck in limbo, so both of these people have already died, they're both stuck in limbo, we need to go save them, basically. So that's where they end up on the beach, which is, I guess, limbo. So they end up there. Mal lives there because she's stuck in limbo, because you found out a bit earlier, I don't remember when, that basically her and Cobb spent a lot of time, they think it was probably 5 hours, in the dream sequence where they built their own world, lived to be old people, and she got so used to that life she gave up on the idea of ever going back to reality. So basically he had to convince her, he went through these Inception types of things, that's why he knew you could do it, that it was her own idea to leave that place and get back to reality. But the problem is, when he set up that idea, when she actually did get back to reality, she never thought that that was actually reality. So she still thought that they were in a dream. She was like, those aren't our real kids, they're not real, we have to kill ourselves, that way we can get back to our actual reality, we're just in another dream. So that's why she jumped off the building, and that's why she set him up, because she was like, hey, you either can be stuck here in this dream in jail, or you can be with me with our actual kids and stuff, like, out of this dream. So that's why he has so much guilt over her. She's stuck in limbo because she, I guess, I'm not really sure how that works, but she died in real life, therefore her mind never left limbo, I guess. I don't know, but she's there too, and she's keeping Fisher hostage, and basically Cobb is like, I'll stay here with you if you let him go. So when they do that, they pretty much just throw him off a building. The first kick happens, and it brings him back to life. And so she throws him off a building so that he can get sent back to the first dream, which is, like, them slowly falling off the bridge. Very slowly falling. The second kick will be them hitting the water. So they fall off the bridge or whatever. Everyone's basically at this point, because like I said, it's very quickly, but the movie's spanned out so it seems longer, like, getting back to that first dream where they're all just, like, in the car. They're all slowly waking up. So Tom Hardy's already in there, like, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's already in there, Ellen Page jumps off the thing, so she ends up there. So everyone at that point is, like, safe. They're back in that first dream. They're all good. do all that. And then by the time the second kick happens, like, Cobb isn't out yet, neither is Saito. He stayed to find him so that they could finish their deal, because he's like, well, I want to get back to my kids, like, I don't have access to them, I can't even go back to my home. So he says, and that's kind of where it shows him, second kick, back in the water, in the beach, and that's the opening scene of the movie, where he's in the beach getting captured. The guy who captured him was Saito, but he was just so much older because he had been stuck in limbo for so much longer, so he aged. And so he's, like, looking at him, and he's like, we can still get out of here. Like, you just have to, like, trust me, you don't want to die alone as an old man. They say that a lot in the movie. And so the next scene, you see Leo, like, waking up on the plane. Like, it never says whether or not they escape the dream, if any of it's real. They just wake up on the plane. Everyone on the plane's fine. They're all like, whatever. And Fisher's got in his mind at this point, he wants to break up his father's company, because when he finally did get to see what was in the safe, it was like a paper windmill. And his dad being like, I'm disappointed, or whatever. And he's like, yeah, you're disappointed in me because I'm not like you, because I'm disappointed you tried to be like me. Which isn't a real memory. It never actually happened. But now he's like, okay, I'm going to break up my father's company, because that's what he would want. So he lands in LA, and that's what he decides to do. Saito wakes up and looks at Cobb, and he's just like, and just starts calling. And then the movie ends with him, like, everyone just kind of breaks up in the airport, but him getting, I think it's his dad, but someone drives him to, like, his kid's house, and he finally sees their faces, and he's like spinning the top to see if it's real, but he runs away from it because he's like, I don't care. I don't even care if this is a dream. I finally get to see my kids. And it never shows the top stop, which is the big controversial thing with this movie, because his little totem is like the top. If it stops spinning, it's real life. If it never stops, he's in a dream. But from what I've read online, his totem isn't the top. Like, it's his wife's totem. He says that. So the top never meant anything. His totem was his wedding ring. He wears it in his dreams and not in real life. So in the last scene of the movie, he's not wearing his wedding ring, so bam, it is real life. So, spoiler, if you did not know or haven't seen this movie, he does end up, like, succeeding and gets to be with his kids. This movie was fucking awesome. Like, it really was. I would probably say watch it, like, 2 or 3 times, because I'm still 100% confident I even memorized enough of it, but it's so good. I gave it an 8 out of 10, because it is kind of tricky to keep up with a lot in the dream sequence part. Like, once they enter that first dream and it gets slowly farther down, it gets more complicated. But overall, the movie is, like, fantastic. Like, absolutely great. Love it so much. Now, my last movie is probably the most recent movie I have on my top 50 list. It came out in, I think, 2016. And it was controversial because the year that it won Best Picture, the people who announced it said La La Land won. And they had all the people get on stage, and then the guy was like, no, Moonlight, you won Best Picture. So, Moonlight. This movie was like, it was very different for me, I guess, because with this movie, it's something that probably never would have won an Oscar, because, like, stereotypically the ones that win are, like, biopics, movies that star really well-known actors, and I think the only, like, real well-known actor in this movie is the guy who plays Juan. I can't pronounce his name. His last name's, like, Ollie, and, like, Janelle Monáe, like, and they're barely in this movie, so, and the fact that it is an LGBT movie that has an all-black cast. So for it to win and it hit, like, those 2 minority points, like, that's something that's really never been done that I can think of anyways. I can't even think of another LGBT movie even winning, like. But anyways, this movie opens up with Juan, which I've already said. He is a drug dealer, and it kind of opens up with him chilling around his, like, normal spot, talking to his, like, dealer friends. And from that scene, it shows this little boy, this little black boy. He's running. They're calling him homophobic slurs as he's running. And he runs into, like, this house that's, like, very clearly, like, a trap house, kind of. And Juan sneaks in through the window and sees him, and he's kind of like, "Hey, little guy, what you doing here?" And his name's Chiron. He doesn't talk. He's just kind of like. So Juan brings him home. Takes him to meet Teresa, his wife or girlfriend, which is Janelle Monáe. And she's like real sweet to him. They're very nice. They're very clearly the maternal, whatever, the family figures that he has. And he says, like, "My name's Chiron." And they're like, "Well, do you live with your mom? Do you live with your dad?" He just kind of is like. So he stays the night there. Juan brings him up in the morning. His mom is she gives him this kind of look like, "Why do you have my kid?" Like a normal parent would, like very concerned, but very like, "I'm glad my kid is home." And his mom's just kind of like more concerned than upset that he was missing, but she has him back. And after that, it shows like the kids playing like this little paper football game, and you're introduced to Kevin. Kevin is Chiron's, I guess, like only friend. I don't even know if they're really friends, but he like talks to him, tells him like, "You need to stop being soft." They wrestle at one point, and he's like, "I knew you weren't soft," you know. And basically, it just keeps showing that Chiron goes back to see Juan and Teresa, because like again, they're like the only parent figures he really has. And he takes them to like the beach, and they have fun. He teaches them how to swim and stuff, and then he gives this little speech about how he is from out of the country. I don't remember where it said he was from, like Puerto Rico or something. And he talks about how this woman would yell at him like, "Black boys look blue in the moonlight," which I'm guessing is where the title comes from, because it's not really mentioned ever again. He goes home, and there's like a random dude in his house. I thought it was the dad, but now I'm just assuming it's the mom's boyfriend, and they're like kind of arguing. His mom is in a very bad mood this time when Juan brings him home. She's very upset. So at this point, you find out that Juan's mom is addicted to whatever drugs that Juan is selling. Juan is actually her dealer. That's why she has that concerned face at the beginning. I guess anyways, like she's kind of looking at him like, obviously she knows who her dealer is. Her dealer doesn't necessarily know who she is. He probably has way more people to keep up with than she has to remember. But he ends up going over to her car, sees that she's in there smoking, and she says something along the lines of like, "Are you gonna raise my kid? Then you don't get to judge. You don't get to say how I raise my kid or whatever. You're gonna continue selling me rocks, aren't you? Yeah, so mind your business," basically. And after that scene, you start to see that the mom is like very skinny. She's starting to like look very sickly. Like it's very much taking over her life. And it literally goes to like Chiron again, like leaving, going over to their house, and his mom's like, you know, kind of a wreck, and he asks Juan and Teresa like, "What is a faggot?" And they're like, "It's a slur for gay people." And he's like, "Am I a faggot?" They're like, "No, you can be gay, but you're not a faggot." And then he says like, "Is my mom on drugs or whatever?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Are you her dealer?" He's like, "Yeah." And Chiron just leaves the house, and you never see Juan again after that point. And it does this little cutscene where it shows his mom with like a very rainbowy aesthetic, and she's screaming, but it's like no sound. And it's like, bam, he's a teenager now. So Chiron's a teenager, and it shows him in school. He's still getting bullied by these people, which like it's 2016 at this point, but it would have been like the early 2000s, I guess, because this movie it ends with him being an adult, so it was, I guess, the 2000s, like early 2000s. So they're still bullying him. He's still like pals, I guess, with Kevin. Kevin's like, "Oh, I got detention because I was fucking this girl in the stairwell," you know, like. But anyways, I'll see you later because I gotta go. And Chiron goes and sees Teresa because he still talks to her, and then some kids, like, when he's on his way to go see her, mention something about how Juan died or whatever. So you're like, okay, so he is gone. He sees Teresa. Teresa, like, gives him gin. Is like, "Oh, I know Juan used to give this to you." So it's like more confirming that he at some point died. It never says how, just that he died a few years earlier. And when he leaves there, he goes, and Chiron's mom is like locked out of the house. She's having a weird, like, what's the word? Not relapse, but like she's not on the drug, so she's like jittery and she's like freaking out because she's not on it, and so she's like, you need to get me inside the house. She goes inside, realizes she doesn't like have any more, and then it's like, you need to give me money. He's like, what money do I have? She's like, I know Teresa gives you money. So he just gives her the money, and then she's like, you need to go to school. And so he like leaves. She's whatever at that point. And that night when he sleeps or whatever, this may still be at Teresa's house, I'm not sure, but he ends up having like a dream where he walks outside and he actually sees Kevin having sex with this chick. And he like wakes up and like goes to school or whatever. And I think instead of actually going to school, like he leaves the house and goes to the beach. And I guess the beach is far away because it was like daytime. And then when he gets there, it's like nighttime. So again, more like the moonlight on him. And he gets there and Kevin is there. And he's like, why are you here? He's like, this is my place to smoke or whatever. And so they're chilling on the beach or whatever, and they start kissing. I don't remember how it was started, but they start kissing, and then sexual acts happen, and he drives him home or whatever. Kevin drives Chiron home, and then the next day at school, the bully guy talks to Kevin and is like, remember when we were kids and I used to tell you to beat up someone and you just do it? I think you should beat up Chiron. So he does it, and Chiron looks like really hurt, obviously, like they just did all that stuff last night, and now they're like, he's fighting him. So he gets beat up. The nurse or whatever counselor's like, you need to like sue this boy so that this doesn't happen again. Like, it's gonna keep happening unless you do something about it. And so instead, it shows him like go home, like clean his face, stick his face in the sink full of like ice water to like heal all the swelling, because all the other kids like kicked him while he was like on the ground from being punched. Goes to school the next day, marches, I tell you, like marches through the school, grabs a chair, breaks it over that bully's head, and gets arrested from it. And that's the last time you see him as a teenager. And then it shows the exact same scene from the earlier where it's his mom with the rainbow aesthetic, but this time you can hear her when she's talking. I don't remember what she says. I think it's like, stop staring at me. But now he's an adult, and he turned out very much like Juan, which again is his only paternal figure in his life. So now he's like slinging drugs or whatever. He's got like the same kind of like aesthetic, the bald cap, the chains. He's like very built now, and he lives in Atlanta. I guess they lived in a different area, but when he went to juvie or whatever, he just stayed in the city that he got out of. He never went back home. So now he's like the big like kingpin person. He actually scares one of his people by telling him like, you counted my money wrong, and he's like, no I didn't. He's like, you're calling me a liar, and he's like, no I and he's like, I'm fucking with you, it's right, here's some money. And then he like sends him out, and he gets a phone call, and the phone call is from Kevin, and he answers it being like, Mom, I said I'd visit you later, like, oh my god. And Kevin's like, hey, I'm out of jail now, because I guess he got arrested at some point. I'm out of jail now, you should come up here, I'm a cook, I'll cook you some food. And so he's like, okay. And he leaves, goes and sees his mom, who's in a rehabilitation center. So it's good to know that she at least got off of everything, and she stayed even though she's clean because she wants to help all the other people. He visits her, she tells him like, I don't like what you're doing with your life, this isn't you. And so after that, he goes and he visits Kevin, and Kevin cooks for him. They talk about everything. He finds out Kevin actually has a son, so he settled down with a girl and they had a kid, but they're not together anymore. And when he went to jail, it made it really hard, but that's why he had to turn his life around. And when Sharon tells him that he's doing the same thing as like Juan, he's like, this isn't you, like, this isn't what you do, like, this is not how you are. He plays him a song on the jukebox that reminds him of him, and then he like asks him where he's gonna stay for the night. He goes and he stays at Kevin's house, and while they're out there talking, he tells him like, hey, you know, you're the only person who's ever like touched me, like, I've never been with another guy, and I've never been with anyone. And that's kind of how the movie ends, because then it just kind of shows him like hugging him, I guess, and then it goes flashback to him as a very, very young boy on the beach, where he's like turning around and his skin, I guess, is supposed to be blue. I didn't think it was blue, but he's got the moonlight on him. And that's how that movie ends. And I gave this movie a 7 out of 10. I liked Inception a bit more. But I liked this movie because it was so different from all the other movies that you ever see win Oscars. Because they're usually like I said, biopics almost always win. I think this year's like a winner, like a lot of like war movies wins. Like 1917 was like the big movie that won this year. I think the actual winner was Parasite. I don't know what that movie's about. But normally it's like war movies, biopics, like those are the type of movies that win, but you never see like LGBT movies win. And I don't even know about another movie that has like an all black cast. Like I literally didn't see a person who wasn't like black in this film. Like I don't know if that's ever been done. So it was very different. But those are, as far as I know, all Oscar winners for something. That one won Best Picture. Inception, I'm sure, won for, like, Best Sound or something. I know that's what Blade Runner won for. But those are my 3 movies that my quarantine has forced me to watch this week. And make sure you subscribe for more videos and stuff that my boyfriend does, because I don't know what he does on here. And I will see you next week, maybe? Who knows? We'll see what quarantine does for my boredom.